Hey everybody, thanks to those of you that tuned into my story episodes for Pokemon Amber and Pokemon Granite. Those are the official titles for my fan-made Regions games, and I'm really happy with how the unveiling went. That being said, I'm excited to get back into drawing Fakemon again. People and human designs aren't really my strong suit. I'm working on it though, so I'm happy to be back into my comfort zone for this week. This particular Pokemon that we're going to release today is intended to belong to our second gym leader in the Wentano region. So far, I've been showing off Pokemon in linear order to how you will encounter them in a fictitious game. Generally, I do want to hold to that, but I got too excited about these designs, so they're skipping ahead of the pack and going straight to the front. Our second gym leader is going to be a fighting type specialist, and this Pokemon and its evolutions will be the bulk of their team. Talking more about this design specifically, though, let's get straight into inspirations. For my fighting type, in a region based on the American West Coast and deserts, I wanted to make a ninja. Hear me out, okay? America loves ninjas. Like, you would not believe. We love ninjas. So many TV shows have them as heroes or villains or anything in between because they're just awesome. That being said, the American tradition of ninjas doesn't put much effort into understanding their rich traditional history as farmers who turn their tools into fighting implements and has generally oversimplified them into something much less significant. Because of all this, I want to be incredibly clear in saying that my ninja Pokemon isn't really based on ninjas. Instead, it's based on the American perception of ninjas. You'll understand this as we get into it, but this Pokemon's origin directly ties into that dream of becoming a ninja that little kids often have. You know, they want to be a martial arts expert or whatever it is, and they go into that without really looking into the history of what it is they might be dreaming to be or what it is they might turn into heroes and villains on televisions and in movies. One thing that America has fully embraced from more Eastern countries is the martial arts tradition. We may not have a true understanding of a ninja, but we have taken the opportunity to learn Aikido, Kung Fu, and most commonly karate. I wanted to create a Pokemon that drew from this aspect of our culture specifically, so I decided to create a Pokemon that came about from hard work in karate. I imagine that as someone becomes so dedicated to their specific martial art, their fighting spirit infuses everything they do. It becomes a part of their personality, their attitude, even their clothing. As these dedicated students outgrow their gi or their uniform, that uniform has the chance to become a Pokemon if it has absorbed enough fighting spirit. The reason that it is so closely resembles a stereotypical ninja is because that's what so many of these young students imagine as the peak example of physical prowess in their martial art. Their fighting spirit causes this clothing to take that shape, and it's often seen that the uniforms of young children are more likely to become this Pokemon, as many of them dream of being just like the ninjas they've seen in action cartoons and movies, though it can still happen to older karate students as well. They just have to fully retain that dream for a Pokemon to be born from their clothing. Meet Ninzoku, the Cloth Ninja Pokémon. Ninzoku are born from the fighting spirit of often young martial arts students. Their fighting spirit imbues their clothing, which, once discarded, can become a Pokemon itself. This Pokemon in turn retains that fighting spirit and the wearer's dreams, aiming to become the best ninja that it can be, and swearing to live the code of honor that ninjas do. Let's evolve Ninzoku, though, and continue to explore the concepts around this perceived ninjahood, as well as reaching out for your shonen-inspired dreams. The first thing you're likely to notice about this design is that its base probably looks pretty familiar. That's because Ninzoku can't really evolve on its own. While it does seek to push itself to be the best ninja that it can, its cloth body has limitations and weaknesses that can't be easily overcome. So what does it do? It seeks out Pokemon who similarly need help overcoming their weaknesses and creates a symbiotic relationship that allows them to evolve together. In practice, this can happen to any Pokemon, I guess, but in reality, it's really only known to happen to a few Pokemon in particular. The first Pokemon that we're going to show off experiencing this symbiotic evolution is going to be Seviper. In its never-ending battles with Zangoose, Seviper is constantly going back and forth, losing, winning, taking critical hits along the way. Eventually, it grows tired of this and seeks to vanquish its foe once and for all, leading to its contract with Ninzoku. It's not entirely clear how this relationship works once the Pokemon has evolved, but it is well understood that it can't be undone. Seviper's body loses its eyesight, and it must rely on the eyes of Ninzoku instead. Its body is augmented by Ninzoku in order to increase its fighting capabilities, but whether it's still conscious underneath the wrappings or not is unclear. In creating this design, I wanted to lean into the ninja weapon of a sickle. Seviper's tail is the perfect thing to transform into one. Now, ninja sickles aren't the massive size that you imagine a Grim Reaper having, but I wanted to do something more medium-sized because it doesn't make sense to shrink Seviper's already existing tail in order to be historically accurate to ninja weaponry. At the same time, I also wanted to create a poison-specific ninja evolution because in the American fantasy of ninjas, they are experts in all types of killing, and that includes poison. In evolving Ninzoku, it seeks out Pokemon that have dreams and desires and wants. Seviper's is based on this ultimate killing machine dream, at least for my storytelling purposes. Ninzoku takes this opportunity to evolve into a fighting poison type, alongside Seviper that can now achieve this dream. It wields a poison-coated sickle that can deal incredible damage to its enemies and often end their lives. I'll talk a little bit more about the design philosophies behind Ninzoku's evolutions, but you'll notice that there isn't too much of a separation from the original Pokemon. These Pokemon are meant to be more like Slowbro, where two Pokemon have come together to evolve. Sure, some small things change, but overall it's a lot closer to a fusion of sorts. That's why Seviper's tail shape and body patterns change, but not much else. Ninzoku unravels itself to form pseudo-arms to add force to the blows dealt by the tail sickle, but there isn't much of a shape change overall. Meet Sevitsu, the sickle Pokemon. Sevitsu are born from a symbiotic relationship formed through shared dreams of total domination. When a Seviper and Ninzoku come together to try to become the ultimate killing machine, a cloth-wrapped, poison-soaked sickle forms on Seviper's tail. Ninzoku wraps the rest of Seviper's body to make alterations elsewhere, and together they become quite the formidable opponent. You may have already noticed me reference the fact that Ninzoku is going to have multiple evolutions in this video, and if you didn't pick up on that, newsflash, Ninzoku is going to have 4 evolutions, with Sevitsu being the first one, and exploring the ninja fantasy of being a master of death, the world's most capable killer. This next evolution is going to explore another fantasy within the mythology of ninjas, a code of honor. Who better to stand opposite a Seviper than Zangoose? I think that this may be because of the anime, but Seviper is much more present within the minds of the Pokemon fandom. It's one of Jesse's Pokemon, right? We often forget that it has a direct tie to Zangoose, who within the lore of Pokemon is its sworn enemy. For my purposes, I use this as the reason for Seviper to agree to Ninzoku's contract and symbiotically evolve. I think the same conflict can be an equal motivator for Zangoose. That being said, I'm going to give it a small personality tweak. In its Pokedex entries, we don't get much more than Zangoose being Seviper's sworn enemy. Here, I'm going to make my own liberties and give Zangoose a sworn code of honor. It believes that by fighting Seviper, it's protecting the Pokemon around it from a dangerous and poisonous enemy. And it's never really stated if Seviper actually did hurt someone or not, or if the Seviper that it's hunting are really worth its justice that it's dealing out. But either way, Zangoose follows this code and has sworn that all Seviper are evil and must be eliminated, and it lives by that. Very ninja-like in the American fantasy. Eventually, this will lead a Zangoose to a contract with Ninzoku, where it evolves, getting new powers that it will use to achieve these goals. From a design perspective, again, the base philosophy is that we're not going to change the physiology of these Pokemon. What you will see is the addition of an extra claw on each hand, and the growth of an entirely new grouping of claws on this Pokemon's tail. For this purpose, you'll see that they're fully extended, almost threateningly, but in reality these claws can be retracted almost all the way back into this Pokemon's body. These claws are meant to resemble the hand claws used by ninjas traditionally, which are called tekokagi. I think I touched on this earlier, but the idea is that each of these evolutions has a unique personality, weapon, and ninja fantasy that they demonstrate. Zangoose is meant to display that honor fantasy, and it uses these Wolverine claws as weapons to seek out and destroy what it believes to be evil. This is in direct contrast to Seviper, who evolves into a sickle-wielding Pokemon that aims to be the master of death. Just like Seviper before it, Zangoose has surrendered its vision, and it's now replaced by Ninzoku's eyes. You'll also see that Ninzoku's pink highlights have turned green in direct contrast to Sevitsu's red cloth highlights. Other than these changes, this Pokemon really does look like a Zangoose dressed up as a ninja, at least to me, which again is the idea that I'm going for. It's important that this is a Pokemon fusion instead of an outright evolution in order to convey the themes that I'm going for. Meet Zangetsu, the Tekokage Pokemon. Zangetsu evolved from the union of a Ninzoku and a Zangoose, and live by a strict code of honor. Under this code of honor, they have devoted themselves to the elimination of Seviper and all evil that they believe are not fit for this world. In surrendering to Ninzoku, Zangoose gains new weapons, new power, but it may have lost something else in return. It's not entirely clear how conscious this Pokemon is beneath the cloth wrappings that adorn its body. Let's move on to our next ninja fantasy, the master of stealth and surprise. In the American mythology of ninjas, these warriors are also capable of getting in and out of any location without being heard and much less seen. This often involves thievery, at least to some amount, and they can easily access your most valuable possessions no matter how hard you may try to secure them. In my mind, the perfect Pokemon to embody this aspect of ninjas is Sableye, because of its already present ghost typing as well as its love for precious gems. Sableye are interesting because they are, in my opinion, the most gremlin-shaped Pokemon ever conceived. They're little purple guys with pointy teeth, and it really doesn't get more gremlin-y than that unless you get them wet after midnight or whatever. Anyways, this became an interesting design challenge because there isn't a part of this Pokemon's body that can be directly transformed into a weapon, and those small physical changes are still an important part of this Pokemon's evolutionary pattern. I decided to create a Pokemon where Ninzoku's cloth wrappings would become extensions of Sableye's limbs, rather than transform them into direct weapons of some kind. The weapons, which are a ninja's primary throwable blades like kunai and throwing stars, are instead formed out of gemstones that this Pokemon has stolen and then reshaped. These crystalline weapons are quite durable, and many of them are stored within the cloth wrappings that surround this Pokemon's body. It makes this Pokemon quite formidable, as unlike Ninzoku and other evolutions, it prefers surprise attacks from a distance that make it difficult to locate. I imagine it would move around quite quickly, throwing a barrage of attacks at you from many different angles. All of this being said, you may be wondering why Sableye would desire this kind of transformation. To me, I've always pictured Sableye as a bit of a trickster, and it enjoys games and things of that nature. Again, kind of gremlin-y. While it's a ghost type and could phase through walls to steal anything it wants, in my mind this Pokemon enjoys the challenge of stealing things the old-fashioned way, and only uses its ghostly powers to make an escape when necessary. The new wrapping-based limbs become essentially tools for picking locks, getting in and out of tight spaces. This is because they can be unwrapped and used almost like tentacles. With these sneaky appendages, Sableye is also an excellent pickpocket, and often described as quite the kleptomaniac. Now it can engage in all types of games and challenges, trying to sneak in and steal things, or just teasing you with the things that it's already stolen from you. Meet Sabitsu, the thrown weapon Pokemon. Sabitsu are master thieves and are known for trying to break into the most secure places and steal the most valuable of all treasures. Their limbs are made of cloth and can be unwound into large prehensile tentacles that are perfect implements for theft, lockpicking, and even combat. That being said, it carries many throwing stars and kunai on its body that is crafted from stolen crystals that it prefers to use over close quarters combat. The last fantasy that I want to delve into for Ninzoku's fourth and final evolution is the idea of a master of combat, in the way of the sword. While many ninjas use different weapons, there's not one more famous than the Japanese katana. For those of you who know anything about ninjas, you might be saying, kinda, I guess. But katanas are really a samurai thing, right? And I'd have to say that overall you are correct. While samurai is by definition a swordsman, and ninjas did also use swords during different periods of Japan's history. In American movies and created mythology, though, a ninja is most definitely a capable swordsman. In selecting a Pokemon to embody this concept, you may have thought there's an obvious choice, right? I mean, it should be probably Aegislash. I thought about it. I really did. But I think it'd be really easy to turn Aegislash into a katana. But what do you do with the shield? There's no place for shields in the world of ninjas, at least not the one that I'm used to. It felt like I'd really have to reach to find something that made sense to fill that slot. This is why I went with another one of my favorite Pokemon, Escavalier. Escavalier has two massive lances for its arms, and it's a bug steel type, which is perfect because that'll make this into a steel type master swordsman. Turn those lances into katanas, boom. Wrap it in ninja clothing, boom. We're done. It's that easy, except for the giant Spartan plume on its head. It took me a minute. It's tricky because I can't imagine a ninja having anything so flashy and obvious on its head. But involving this Pokemon, it would feel rather naked if I just removed it outright. That's why I settled with these two protrusions that you'll see on the back of the helmet. They're intended to resemble the crests that sit above the forehead of a samurai's helmet, and seem like a feature America might accidentally add just for style points. Escavalier is a rather serious Pokemon, and so its contract with Ninzoku comes from a determination to grow stronger. It wants to hone its steel, which Ninzoku is able to transform into the 3 katanas on its body, if you count the tiny one on its butt. I imagine that after evolving, all you would ever see this Pokemon do is train. Even in the wild, they can barely be bothered to do anything other than train, battle, and train some more. This effort does lead to unimaginable strength, though, and their katana can slice through anything as a result of it. This Pokemon feels like, of all of the Ninzoku evolutions, it would be the most Leonardo-coded of the group. Maybe Sabitsu would be Mikey, and Sangitsu would be Raph. I guess that makes Sevitsu the Donatello, but I don't know, that one doesn't really fit. Maybe in the pursuit of knowledge, and it would be the intellectual one? I don't know. It was a fun analogy until I really started thinking about it, so thanks for listening to this part of the video. I can't even imagine who Shredder or Splinter would be, much less any of the other characters. For now, meet Escavitsu, the katana Pokemon. Escavitsu are incredibly capable sword fighters, and spend all of their time training for battles yet to come. Should you challenge one to a fight, their steely demeanor makes them difficult to read and impossible to predict. The sword on each arm, and on the bottom of their shells, can cut through nearly anything, and they are considered the strongest weapons that any normal Pokemon might have in its arsenal. And there you have it, my 5 ninja Pokemon, who you'll primarily encounter with our second gym leader. As an eager cloth full of fighting spirit, a snake who's mastered death, a hot-head honor-bound ferret, or cat ferret, technically, a thrill-seeking gremlin ghost, and a dutiful, powerful swordsman. Who's your favorite? And what do you think of this concept? Is it really something that has been done before? I don't think so, but do you think it could be implemented into a real Pokemon game? That's all for now. Thanks for listening to my gravelly voice. I blew it out at a football game, but hopefully next week it'll be held up and you can have some better audio to listen to. For now, go make something incredible for yourselves. Thank you.